Hello, lovelies. Hello, family. Welcome to my channel. This is Kimberly Purpoz. Today, I wanted to do a part 2 to the Aboriginal Truth, the Dawes Commission, and the 5 Civilized Tribes from 1893 through 1914. I was basing talking about what happened to the Indians during Dawes Commission. A lot of times the books do not explain exactly what happened to the Negroes. In the history books, when you study from the classroom during indoctrination right here in the United States. So I decided to touch on this subject and talk about what actually took place. And it talks about this 5 civilized tribes. And for this particular video, I want to talk about the Cherokee Indians. But before we start, I want to announce that right now, my chakra necklace, I'm still working on getting that up, to store up. But I'm working also on putting together my workshops that I'm going to have available online, my classes. I'm going to have online classes available at the Purpose Healing, not the Purpose Healing Arts Institute, but the Purpose Counseling and Wellness Institute. And I'll keep you guys posted on that. And I'm also going to put a link to my second channel because I just started another channel that's going to be more about motivation, more about relationships and counseling and astrology, which is another interest I have. I'll touch on astrology, numerology, and that channel would be dedicated for that. And probably oracle cards, maybe. But if you can, please subscribe to that channel. It's the Purpose channel, and I'll keep you posted on that. And I'll also keep up with what's going on with the Counseling Wellness Center over there in that channel as well. But I also want to mention, we're going to talk about Cherokee in this video, but I also want to mention that it's a website that people can go to. Y'all might want to Google search Dawes Commission database. I believe it's a database that's available for people who want to look on Dawes Commission to see if any of their ancestors' names are listed on that particular list. So if you want to check that out, you may want to do so. I went on there one time before, and a couple of times actually, and it's an extensive database. It's a lot of work. But if you go through it, you could try to see if you can find if any of your relatives are listed on the database. And I believe it's for free. It was for free when I checked it about a year or two ago. But there is a database. I want you to let you know. I think you might can get it through Ancestry.com. But if you Google search, it may come up as well. I just wanted to share that information with you guys. I need to go back and do some research on my family tree too, because there was a couple of names that was listed on there that my cousins did 10 years ago and maybe 15 years ago, even longer. They thought that they were Mongoloid Indians, and that's why they just stopped researching. They just assumed that all the people that was on the list were only Mongoloids. And so they assume, and they think that our ancestors were only enslaved, so they didn't even research it any further. So I'm going to have to go back and do some more research and see if I can find out if any of our ancestors, which ones is listed on the list. I just wanted to share that piece of information. But anyway, I want to get back to this book, because I told you this book right here is an excellent resource. If you all do not have it, you might want to go ahead and get it, because it has a lot of information on what actually took place. I'm right here on page number 106. In the first video, I was able to go over some of it with you all on the screen, because I was able to go to the e-store. I think it was the e-store, the library one, or online library, to pull up some of it, but it's not going to have the whole thing in there. I think it only has the first chapter or the first pages to the first chapter that you can read. But this particular chapter is on chapter 7, deciding who can be Cherokee and Indian. So I'm on page number 106 of that chapter, chapter 7. And I'm going to read to you because I thought this was some information that y'all would want to talk about, to learn about. So I'm going to stroll on there. And I'm going to take you all over to my blog, back to the same page that I had about Dawes Commission. My blog, and so let's continue. It says, although the freedmen were widely resented, they became a force in Cherokee politics. One observer pointed out that the mixed blood leaders of the tribe got to be pretty good politicians. In their election of 1860 and the census of the nations that was completed in 1867, listened almost 2,500 freedmen, along with 17,000 total residents. So they explain here about the freedmen, and it showed that they actually were part of the politics within Cherokee Nation. And that was in the 1860. Right towards the end of slavery, which was 1865. So they say. And like I said before, this particular book has the permits and stuff about Cherokee Nation right here on page 106. I can show it here. It shows the permits right here. And also it shows, again, showing you certificate of admission of Cherokee citizenship. And this is an example of the document that they had for the Indians back during that time frame. I'm not sure if y'all can see me in a little bubble, see the information, but let's continue. It says some Cherokees continue to attempt by African Americans to gain citizenship as a threat to their control of tribal government, but that threat quickly became part of much of a larger danger posed by the ever-increasing flood of Greys into the nation, which that was taking place. The Caucasian was coming in. And it says John N. Craig, a captain in the U.S. Army, was reserved as the Indian agents of Cherokee, took a census in 1870 that listed 1,545 freedmen and more than 700 non-citizen Greys who were designated. See, they put a ton of them in there. Like I said, when I was looking at another video, I was reading the encyclopedia. They was talking about the Caucasian, how all of a sudden the leadership of the Cherokees changed ethnicity. It used to be people of color, with Negro features. And then they transitioned over to having Caucasians. The original tribes in these ancient pictures were shown as being dark complexion people. And the people came in and to colonizers, they described the people when they first came in, they said they were black. So it sort of lines up very fairly, quite well. It says here though that like we said that that what they were doing was putting Caucasians in these tribes when they are not indigenous. And it says here whites were designated intruders. Pretty much that's what they describe them. They are intruders. It says tribal officials repeatedly called on Craig and his successor to remove the intruders. But many of them claimed that they were entitled to citizenship, and the federal government refused to force anyone out until his or her status had been resolved. And see, this was during the time when the government took over these tribes, and they were allowing all these Greys to come into the tribes illegally. It says the railroads were allowed to extend their lines into Indian territory in 1870, and the intrusion of Greys became not only easy, but almost spectacular. And that's exactly, they used to train the railroad system to intrude into Indian territory. And so that's what took place. They came in through the trains. And that was their excuse lame excuse as far as I'm concerned, to come in and steal land. And it says here the 5 civilized tribes were inundated by graves. Farmers, risky peddlers, merchants, and speculators attracted by advertising funded primarily by railroads and promised great opportunities. So the Greys flooded themselves into this country. And they're the biggest immigrants of all. They try to tell everybody else they don't belong here, but they main ones that don't belong here. And they had the audacity to call themselves Americans when they're not. They are invaders and intruders, pretty much, and they don't belong here. And so they should not be called indigenous. And so that's what I want to show you guys. And like I said, that's the cover of the book on this blog. And this is another picture of what they took of the Negroes. They were there. It says right here, Negro camp during Dawes Commission enrollment at Fort Gibson, IT 1899-1901. During the Dawes Commission enrollment, they were there because they are the Indians. Negro Indians were supposed to be part of the tribe, but they were taken off. Let's go on. And I was telling you how they didn't put clear pictures of what the Negro Indians looked like. That was by design because they don't want the truth to be told that they were Negro Indians here in this country. Now, I'm going to go here to chapter number 9. I'm going to read a couple of these paragraphs right here about Dawes. It says here, buy, rent, or steal. If the reformers wanted to assimilate Indians into civilized society, was correct to their assumption that an allotment of land really had enough magic in it to bring about that magic had to give time. The General Allotment Act of 1887 recognized this fact and provided that allotment be ineligible for 25 years. Similar provisions were incorporated into the Curtis Act and various agreements negotiated with the tribes. Unfortunately, in the same year, Dawes Commission was established. Frederick Jackson announced to his fellow historians of the annual convention that there were no longer a frontier for America to settle. So they saying during the late 1800s, there's no more frontier to settle in the West. So since there was no more frontier to settle in the West of the United States, that's when they started attacking and letting greed set in and allowing the Caucasians to just come in and claim land on Indian territory. And it says right here, it's pretty much the depressing news may have encouraged many land-hungry settlers and spectaculars to turn their gaze on Indian territory. Hearing Dawes clearly recognized the threat that they posed, he warned the greed and hungry and thirst of gray men for the Indians' lands is almost equal to his hunger and thirst for righteousness. Exactly, greed set in, and then the government set up by them, and they wrote the laws as they see fit. In this paragraph, they mention all these acts. And that's why we need to understand these acts and read up and see what they wrote during that time period to get more clarification of what actually took place. One of these acts is the General Allotment Act of 1887, which is what brought about Dawes Commission. And Dawes was headed by Henry Dawes himself. And then let's scroll down here. I'm going to read this last paragraph. And it says here, this is chapter number 9, buy, rent, and steal, and it's on page, I'm still on chapter 9, and it's on page 155. And it says here, the tribal government contribute to the demographic disaster that will eventually destroy them by allowing non-citizen farmers and cattlemen to use land which became the basis for some huge fortunes. The first report of Dawes Commission and the Centennial investigation in 1894 has been recognized. The impact of influx of gray settlers, the biggest migrants of all, y'all, and have charged that some tribal officials shared in the wealth. The commission reported in 1896 that 61 individuals or corporations control almost 1/3 of Creek nations. See, there was in the pictures you can see that how that took place with the gray washing of history. And once they allowed the grays in, well, the grays, they didn't allow them in. The indigenous people didn't allow them in. They just put themselves in there. And when they put themselves in there, that's when the pictures, they just went in and changed the pictures over and just gray washed everything to fit their narrative and to pretty much erase the indigenous people out of history, which they pretty much have done the whole time. And they still doing now with our culture that we create today. And then nothing has changed. If you look at the patterns of great Caucasians of today and what they do with our culture, such as the music, the arts, the styles, everything that we create and develop, they put their face on it and flood the media with their images of themselves as being pretending to be something that they're not. And this is how they do it. They flood the media with their face, their images, with the fake images of who they are. They are not the real indigenous people. And that's one thing we have to keep on speaking and putting out into the universe who the true indigenous people are, so all this can change. It says here the Perryman family reported was getting $25,000 a year, while Pleasant Potter and Clarence W. Turner share more than $16,000 a year in rent from cattle companies. Greedy asses. See, this shows you how greedy these grays are. You know, stealing stuff and then claiming it as their own, and then generations later, they're the offsprings of the people who stole the theft. Still sitting on their time is not theirs, and they don't want to do the right things. That's why they'll be punished, because you can't keep on doing the wrong thing and think you're gonna get away with it. You know, there's a price to pay for being liars and thieves, and all the evil deeds you've done in the past is going to catch up. And it says Porter later acknowledged that Kansas City cattlemen and grays came into Creek Nation and got leases on about everything in sight. And see, that's what happened. They pushed all the indigenous people, especially people of color, the Negroes, off. And they're still doing it with gentrification. It's the same thing. They get land for dirt, get properties for dirt cheap, and then turn around, jack up the price, and make money for themselves. It's like they just constantly want to greed, just steal, and selfish individuals hoard. I call them hoarders, hoarding of wealth that's not theirs. It's very disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves. It says one study of the era concludes that Texas cattlemen had created a bowling highway through Creek Nation and had become a major factor in politics. And this is what they do. They still do this. But what they do is they use trains, they use transportation, they use highways. They did that with Black Wall Street. I think it was the one in North Carolina, I believe. I think it's North Carolina or South Carolina, but they put a highway right in the middle of Black Wall Street and then ruined their development. And they did that so they could break up the lands that American Aborigines have, and which they call African Americans also, but and so they can have access to the land. It's the same thing. Patterns of the behavior of the great Caucasoids, you got to see, it's the same thing. It hasn't changed. And the problem is they hold the pen of the narrative, and that needs to be changed too. Now, once you get them out of office, or we create our own office for government, then or move them out the way, then you can get things will change. They don't need to be holding the pen, because they are not the majority, never have and never will be. And it says here, more than 174,000 acres in Cherokee Nation have been fenced off for the exclusive use of only 23 citizens. Wilson N. Jones was widely recognized in the wealthiest Choctaw time controlled 17,600 acres. That is ridiculous. And they know it. And now what do they need all that land for? And it's not even theirs. It's crazy. Large areas of Chickasaw nations was occupied by tenant farmers from Texas, and tribal lands was being leased to oil and gas companies that often controlled by the railroads and built more and more ways through and in territory. And this is how they did it, you guys. This is how they pretty much did it. They put railroads and highways, and the same thing they did with Black Wall Street. They did the same thing, and the reason why is because too many of them are in power in these government, and they don't belong there. They cheat to get into office, and you saw what the Republicans did, especially here in in Georgia. They didn't win the election, and they never win the election. They just put themselves in and just write stuff as they go. The laws that they do is never fair. They create laws according to how they deem fit, and that's the problem. That's why they need to be out of office, and that's why they don't go past hit a certain time period in history, because if you look further back, they were not in control of the Indians, which are the American Aborigines that were over here. The people, the copper colored races, which is us, we're fighting them back. And I think a lot of the times we back down because we have a lot of enemies fighting us. But the first thing we need to know is who we are. And that's the most important thing, knowing who we are, having our identity, understanding what's taking place. And I'm starting to see more and more as I read more research, what is exactly what's taking place and what we're going to do about it. Of course, you can't share that on social media because, a lot of special interest groups want to keep the narrative the same, even though it's wrong and it's not accurate. But the time is here. It's time for a change. But it's time for us to open our eyes and, first of all, also realize the truth. They're in books. And we got to read, we got to research, we got to dig, we got to find all this stuff. It's all there. It's all there. We just got to share it and start making a change. But please like this video and thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to put a link to the second channel. I'll try to remember to put the link below. I would like to see what you all think. I just wanted to touch on Cherokee. You got a chance to see exactly what happened with the Freedmans. Freedmans were in politics, but then there was some bickering about probably, who should be in charge in politics and everything, and pushing certain groups of ethnic groups out. Certain people, the pushing of the American African Americans, the American Aborigines out of these tribes is explained clearly as day in that book, how they did it and what they were doing. And the bickering amongst the tribes, which we still have the problem today. Sometimes I could see how it happened. There's not enough unity. The Freedmans and the Freedmans, the half-breeds that was up in there, and also the African Americans, which are the true 100% American Aboriginals, all of them came together and worked together as a team. None of this would have happened in the first place. But everybody bickering about details, you never think everything doesn't get done. I saw a video on Tanshan's channel, with Dan Calloway talking to some Native people, Mongoloids, half-breeds too. And I was a little bit disappointed with how it was done, because the Mongoloid people and the natives are still trying to hold on to the great supremacy ideology and don't see how things don't want to see the truth about our history, and they want to keep us as a slave from Africa when we know we are indigenous here. And according to our ancestors, what our grandparents told us, that's where we come from, and that's who we're going to listen to. Not gonna listen to what some race say because they want to keep race supremacy alive, and they want to keep Jim Crow and um, how they did with the slave trade and all that to keep their money and power in place when their time is limited and is about up. It's up now because they're about to be a minority. I believe they're personally already in a minority, and it's time for them to go. Because we can't bring about change unless we have a peace among ourselves and learn how to get along. And I think all of us going to have to come together. The half-breeds, the Mongoloids, and the American Aborigines. I don't know if that's going to happen because so many people are still indoctrinated and want to keep things the way it is because they think they're getting something. Especially the fair and pale looking people, the half-breeds that are pale looking, grays and all of them that think that they're better based on a speculation of a person from 200 years ago who created. I went into details in another video about how race does not have no scientific basis, and I still feel that way to this very day. It does not have no scientific basis at all. It's based on a person's opinion. It's not even based on facts. It's based on speculations and a racist bias bigotry opinion because they want to keep slavery alive. They freeloading off of the indigenous people that were living here. And they still want to keep it the same because of greed and money and power. And the little crumbs that these gray mongoloids that are trying to perpetrate gray supremacy is ridiculous because they ain't getting anything either. They think they are, but they don't think too highly of you guys either. And the ones that still think the same way as gray Caucasians and licking their booty crack, pretty much, trying to be them when they're not them. And we just have to understand that we gotta look at the bigger picture and come together and using logic. And that's how they conquered the Americas, because nobody came together. Because everybody fighting about everybody, and someone thinking they're getting something against getting a little crumb, think they're getting something and getting nothing. And all this infighting is a big issue. It's a big issue. And we got to talk to each other with logical sense. And because nobody ain't getting anything, really. Really. But the truth need to be told. It's not fair to strip the identity of the real indigenous people for your own perceived own personal gain when you're not getting anything either. It's enough to go around for everyone, but a lot of people don't want to share. It's like this world is based so much on greed. You can see it in the history books. You can see in the research and everything that's been done. I saw it in this Dawes Commission book, the greed and how, and it's a shame. It's definitely a shame. But I would love to see what you all think. I can go on and on about this, about Dawes Commission and how everything went down with Dawes Commission. And yeah. And I think this is a great read. I just wanted to share about Cherokee Nation, get a little touch on it, and I wanted to show that particular page of what happened, how they was kicking the indigenous people out of these tribes and were putting Caucasians into these tribes. And there were a lot of infighting going on, and then they realized there was a bigger problem with grays coming in, and it escalated, just like I thought. But like I said, I'm gonna end this video. Please like this video, thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to subscribe to my second channel, which is Purpose Channel. And until next time, family, peace and peace, love and peace. Bye bye.